I'm Clark Smith. As a winemaker from California, I'm delighted to be able to speak to you today about wine service for professionals. These wines are our babies. We spend our whole lives putting a product in the bottle, and it's so important to be able to work with sommeliers and waiters and retailers to present our products in the proper way. And so I'd like to talk to you about all the ins and outs of how we present a wine. I'm going to concentrate on restaurant service. Now, to begin with, the most important thing as a waiter is to be conscious of who you're serving. You have different kinds of customers. Some of them will be very knowledgeable, but for the most part, they don't know anything about wine, and they're a little bit afraid of it, and they're probably afraid of you. And so your real job, and this is going to show up in your tips, is to be able to make them comfortable and not put them on the spot, and make sure that they have a pleasant wine experience and that they're taken care of. So on the other hand, some of these very knowledgeable customers are going to have very specific expectations, and so you want to look like you know what you're doing, and I'm going to go through some of the little details here of how we serve wine. So to begin with, let's talk about wine glasses. This is a pretty good choice for a standard wine glass that would work for any occasion. First of all, you'll see that it's not too small, has enough room in it for the aroma of the wine to express itself. It has a balanced look to it. The glass is relatively thin and delicate, so it's not a big chunky glass. Also, I like wine glasses that are pretty much undecorated, that have just a simple appearance. Let the wine be center stage. So we like clear glass without a lot of writing on the glass or other kinds of embellishments, colored grape clusters hanging off the glass and so forth, are really demeaning to the wine that you're trying to present, and they make it look cheap. So that's a good general all-purpose glass. The bowl is about 10 ounces, and you can see that it has a kind of a balanced appearance. If you only owned one wine glass, that would be a pretty good choice. We have all these other different shapes that are specialty glasses that are developed for specific types of wine. Let's start with just sort of a somewhat larger version of a standard wine glass, and this is called a claret glass. Now, claret is the British name for Bordeaux, and so we're talking about the Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, the Meritage wines, and the great chateaus of Bordeaux, France itself. Those wines traditionally are served in a somewhat larger glass, but still with the upright look of a standard wine glass. These are the Bordeaux. This is called a claret bottle or a Bordeaux bottle, and it has this high-shouldered look to it that signals the Bordeaux style. Bordeaux's are somewhat understated. They have a lot of complexity, but the wine's aromas need to be coaxed out, and they have a great deal of profundity. And so for all that to express itself, we need a little bit more room in the glass, and we'll be swirling that glass to coat the outside so that there's lots of opportunity for evaporation, and then at the top to have the glass slightly pinched so that the aromas are focused right where we put our nose. So that's a claret glass. Now this is a Pinot Noir, and that's the great red grape of Burgundy. If you look at the difference in the shape of the bottle, that's a claret bottle, and this is a Burgundy bottle. So these are much lighter wines. They don't have as much tannin, they're not very dense, and they can be very, very light and perfumey and have sort of dreamlike, ethereal aromas that take quite a bit of coaxing to take the most advantage of. And so for that reason, we use what's called a Burgundy balloon for for Pinot Noir, for red Burgundies themselves, and also for Chardonnays. Chardonnays come in Burgundy bottles too, and those are that's the white grape of Burgundy. So Burgundy balloons have a lot more surface area so that we can get coax out a lot of that aroma. I guess I have to pause and say I usually don't like, as I said, I don't like embellishments on the glasses, but this particular glass says Professor Cassidy on it, and he's our mentor here at FIU, and so I don't mind drinking Burgundy out of a glass that says Professor Cassidy on it. Okay, now why in the world, given all that, would anybody want to serve wine in a glass like this? And the answer is that that's a port glass. So port is a red wine that has a whole lot of sugar and alcohol and extremely strong aromas and, of course, a strong alcohol content. And so we don't want to drink very much of it, and it's got lots of aroma, and so we tend to go in a smaller glass, because if we served that in a Burgundy balloon, it would just blow us away. It'd have so much aroma that we wouldn't even be able to smell it. So port is normally served in very small glasses, and normally we're only going to drink maybe an ounce of port, just as a way to kiss our palate at the end of dinner and kind of slake our appetite. So at the end of the meal. So completely different function. Now, more different still is the champagne glass. Now, this is called a champagne flute, and its purpose is to give us, with a little bit of wine, the maximum amount of height so that we can watch the bubbles rise. And that's because the finest champagnes have very fine mousse, very fine fizz to them, little tiny bubbles, and we want to be able to look at those. So the regular popular champagne glass, which is called a coupe, is the opposite of this. It's like a Burgundy balloon that's kind of sawed off at the top. So it's a big flat bowl. It's the worst glass you can drink champagne in for a number of reasons. One is you can't watch the bubbles rise. Secondly, all that surface area is going to nucleate the bubbles, so the wine goes flat right away. And the third problem is there's no tulip shape to it, so it doesn't focus the aromas, and we basically can't smell the champagne, and it goes flat, and we can't look at it. So it's just a terrible glass. The champagne coupe was developed in the French Revolution, and it actually was developed as an insult to Marie Antoinette, because the maker said that he used Marie Antoinette's breast as the model for the shape of the coupe. Well, actually, Marie Antoinette, if you look at the old paintings, she had really nice looking breasts, but the revolutionaries, because they just got through chopping off her head, and so they wanted her to be known to have very small breasts, and so they came up with this very small glass. That was a terrible thing. You should not own these glasses. They really don't have any use. You want to have either a flute. Flute is nice because 3 ounces will fill this glass up, and it looks to your customer like he's getting a lot of wine, but it's actually only 3 ounces. But the problem with flutes, I like to use champagne tulips, which are sort of a combination of these two looks. They have a high rise, but they also are a little larger in the bowl, and so that just gives a little bit more room so I don't have to keep going back to the bottle all the time. And then a third shape that's also very popular is a champagne trumpet that's shaped like this, and it has a little more volume too, and they might have 6 inches of rise in them as well. So those trumpets, tulips, and flutes are really the 3 best champagne glasses. I'll be coming back and using this glass to show you how to pour a champagne when we open it up, or a sparkling wine. We use the term champagne just for the wines from Champagne itself, the region in France, and then we have sparkling wines in the rest of the world, often made according to the champagne principles.